Hi everybody, Bill Duvendack here with the November 2024 monthly astrological preview video. So grab a cuppa, get cozy, and let's talk about November because it's really an interesting situation. As I'm sure many of you know, the month starts off with a new moon in Scorpio, basically on calendar Samhain, also known as Halloween. Do I really have to tell you that this doesn't happen often? Because it doesn't. So this is rare. For some people, it might be a once in a lifetime new moon. And I encourage you to take advantage of it. This is the season of the Scorpion. This is the season of darkness. This is the season of death and rebirth. This is the season of passion, intensity, ambition, drive, focus, and all those things the social media influencers will try and tell you is bad. So, that's how November starts. Not with a whisper, but a bang. Now, that new moon is not just the sun and the moon in Scorpio. We actually have a Scorpio stellium, which includes Mercury. So for those of you that do work between the planes, this is a perfect time to do it. For those of you that do ceremonial magic, ritual magic, witchcraft, anything like that, this is an excellent time to indulge. This is a good time to probe beneath the surface. As I've said many times, Scorpio is an analytical sign. It's an investigative sign. Its critical thinking skills are on the same level as Virgo. So it's a good time to get to the heart of the matter, get to the bottom of things, whatever colloquialism you would like to use. And besides just those three, because that's not enough, we also have a water grand trine. So a water grand trine means emotions are stronger than normal. If you don't believe me, just read the news. It also means this is a time of spiritual initiation. Now, I find this last one, spiritual initiation, very interesting because not everybody goes through the same initiation. What I mean by that is right now, we as a species are being initiated into a higher level of development. The reason this is happening is because we've spent a lot of time collectively bettering ourselves. And as anybody who plays games, console games, computer games, tabletop RPG games, knows that when you do something long enough, you get tested, and then after that test, you can go to the next level. That's the initiation that I'm talking about now. Now, this water grand trine also, besides the sun, moon, and Mercury, also includes Mars in Cancer and Neptune retrograde in Pisces. So Neptune retrograde in Pisces, along with Saturn, have really been setting the tone for a grounding of spirituality. I've seen it all over the place, and I hear it when I talk to people. The retrograde side of Neptune tells us now is a good time to break addictions, break bad habits, and basically come out cleaner than you were before the retrograde period started. Now, that Mercury in Scorpio is also opposing Uranus retrograde in Taurus, so be careful with your words. If they have veiled meanings, don't be surprised if you have Freudian slips happen. If you are a deep thinker or you're very driven and passionate on something during the day, then the random unexpected might come up through the course of daylight to throw you off track. So while it's good to focus, it's good to micromanage and get into the details, that can also leave you living a life with blinders on. And that's what the Uranus and Taurus is all about. Reminding us, hey, the serenity prayer is the way to go. Focus on what you can control, let go of what you can't, and train yourself to recognize the difference between the two. Now, that Mercury in Scorpio, besides everything else we've talked about so far on the 1st, is also sextiling Pluto in Capricorn, telling us it's a good time to change long-standing institutions, change authoritarian structures, and some of you might take issue with this, but the way to do it when you have Mercury in Scorpio sextiling Pluto in Capricorn is to be the poison in the system. Don't let them know you're coming till it's too late for them to do anything about it. That's Mercury in Scorpio. Sneak attack with your words. Sneak attack with your actions and your behaviors. Now, do I condone this? Depends on the situation. But I do encourage you to think about the fact that not everybody has to know all of your business. You don't have to announce your agenda to others. You just work quietly and then roll it out when you're ready. That's a point I've talked about a lot on here. Venus in Sagittarius is opposing Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. This tells us it's a good time the first few days of the month to watch your spending. Spend cautiously. In affairs of love, stick with what is working rather than trying new things. And in one of my favorite aspects, when you've got anything in Sagittarius opposing anything in Gemini, the moral of the story is be singular in purpose. Don't get distracted. And it's a choice to be distracted. Focus, drive, singularity. Jupiter in Gemini is division. Now, you could also, on a positive note, say that Jupiter in Gemini is prosperity and the expansion of consciousness through conversations with others and through people you know and lighthearted fun, and all of that is true. But Gemini, just like Aquarius, just like Libra, are dual signs. There's a duality to them. So tread lightly with your loved ones on the 1st. Now, that same Venus in Sagittarius is also trining Chiron retrograde in Aries, telling us through this singularity, through focusing on all Venusian traits, you may find you are able to heal some internal psychological or emotional wounds that you have been suffering from for quite a while. Pluto in Capricorn is sextiling Neptune retrograde in Pisces. This has been going on a while. It's going to continue to go on a while because both of these are outer planets that move slowly. And these planets affect groups of people, masses of people, rather than individuals in a very profound way. And I say that because it's saying that right now, long-standing institutions, authoritarian structures, are currently being changed by the grounding of spirituality that is happening at this time. But the catch is, we have to be willing to grow. We have to be willing to change. And change is a key word of Scorpio. That Pluto in Capricorn is also trining Uranus retrograde in Taurus. I like this. It's another outer planet situation, so it affects large groups of people, and this particular aspect is going to be happening for quite a while. But I especially like this one because it's saying that through the internet, changes are being made to authoritarian and long-standing structures and traditions in society. Uranus corresponds to the internet and mass communications. So this particular transit is going to be here for pretty much all the month and going forward. And we'll talk more about that later. And finally, that Pluto in Capricorn is also opposing Mars in Cancer. It's a good thing Mars is a fast mover, because this opposition tells us you might be suffering tension between the family and the home life on one end of the spectrum versus work and the career and the occupation on the other. Oftentimes, Mars in Cancer is also indicative of somebody that pursues religion. And with Pluto in Capricorn, it's saying, well, choose. Are you going to focus on religion, or are you going to focus on bettering society? Now, I think many of you longtime listeners and people that I've talked to over the decades know that when you see a duality like that, it's usually an illusion. But in this case, it's very, very true. I point this out because right now, the most spiritual thing any of us can do is help our fellow person in whatever way we are able to. Whether it's a comforting conversation, whether it is financially, whatever the case may be. And now is the time to do that. The second, Dia de los Muertos, continues the themes of the outer planets that we just talked about on the first, but now we have the moon conjunct Mercury, whereas the new moon the day before, that conjunction was not present. This tells us, watch your emotions. It would be smart to breathe before responding. If you've got temper issues, they might get triggered on this day. But on the positive, this continues the theme from the first, that it's a good time to contact spirits, do spirit work, ritual magic, spirituality of any kind, witchcraft. All of those good things can be done on the second as easily as the first. And following that up, because that happens early in the day, later in the day, Mercury moves into Sagittarius. And this is fickle. And here's why it's fickle. In traditional astrology, this is not seen as a good combination. Why? Because Mercury, the planet of personal communication, among other things, likes to be more diplomatic and thorough and thought through. Sagittarius says, just give it to me straight. I'm a straight shooter, a straight talker. So you can see how diplomacy and honesty many times conflict. I disagree with traditional astrology on this. That might have been true decades ago or centuries ago, but it's definitely not true now. Mercury in Sagittarius is all about being honest, but being diplomatic when you're honest. You know, several months ago, and I think I've talked about it on here, I ranted about the idea of, I'm brutally honest. Okay, then you're an asshole. Because you can be honest and be diplomatic. So on one hand, on the second, it may feel like a mini Mercury retrograde, but once Mercury settles into Sagittarius a day or two later, you might find it's a good time to have honest heart-to-heart conversations with people. Without the brutally honest. Be fucking compassionately honest. That's how you maximize that particular combination. We've got a fire grand trine happening, which is funny. I got to laugh at my own notes. We got a fire grand trine happening, but here's what's going to be trippy about it. It's Mars, Mercury, and Neptune. So it's a fire grand trine, but they're all in water signs. Most of them are at the ends of the sides, so they're on the cusp. So as they're as much influenced by the next sign, which for all those is fire, as it is water. So you could call it a fire grand trine, you could call it a water grand trine, you could call it a fodder grand trine or a wire grand trine if you want to get silly with it. But regardless of how you look at it, it means that the initiatory themes and emotional challenges from the first are still continuing to this day, but now there's an emphasis on proactivity. Mercury is conjunct the moon in Scorpio, which opposes Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So watch those online conversations, and that is going to be present, luckily, just for a day or two. Now, the sun in Scorpio is trining Saturn retrograde in Pisces, and that's going to be lasting until the 8th. So you're going to have about a week's worth of time to work with it. Saturn retrograde moving through Pisces is giving all of us the spiritual message. It's time to review our spiritual practices. Not necessarily our beliefs, unless they are toxic and unhealthy, but rather how we put into practice what we say we believe. On the 10th, we've got the moon conjunct Saturn retrograde in Pisces. So you might feel like your spiritual world is falling apart at the seams. It might be. You might not be wrong about that, or you could be wrong about that. But these are unrealistic fears to have. Everything that breaks down is going to be recycled. That's the way the world works. Don't believe me? Look at nature. Mars in Leo is trining the North Node of the Moon retrograde in Aries. That's going to be going on for a while. That aspect is going to be in play until the 22nd. And what this tells us, in almost conflict to what I said earlier, is that the more you focus on doing what's best for you with optimism as your ally, the more you are creating your own spiritual and personal growth and good, particularly internally. Others might not like it. That's their baggage, not yours. And the only thing to be careful of with this aspect that's going to last almost 2 weeks is be careful you don't become narcissistic. Mercury in Sagittarius is squaring Saturn retrograde in Pisces. So you might find on the 10th, if you are direct in your communication, it might trigger other people's fears, wounds, spiritual beliefs. And you know, this square is really tricky. Because on one hand, you should be honest. You're not responsible for how other people respond to your words, unless you use words that are specifically targeting getting responses from them. But on the other hand, if you know what someone is working on, if you know their spiritual and emotional baggage, then this aspect is saying you might have your hands full biting your tongue. The moon conjunct Saturn retrograde in Pisces is also squaring Jupiter retrograde in Pisces. I know some of you are really going to be annoyed to hear me say this, but the 10th is not a day to frivolously spend money on spiritual trinkets and tools. I know I don't like saying it, and I know you don't like hearing it. The 10th is a day to do some internal work, spiritual work, psychic work, facing your fears work. And it may cause you to not have fun with your friends that day. Or it may cause challenges with opportunities brought your way. On the 11th, the moon conjunct Neptune retrograde in Pisces. So this is another tricky aspect. The moon conjunct Neptune retrograde in Pisces tells us that it's a good day to break bad habits and addictions, whether they're emotional based or spiritual based or chemical based. But in order to break them on the 11th, you're going to get tested on them. So it's not just going to be a choice. The choice has already been made. This is the day when an opportunity comes along and you get a chance to indulge in those bad habits. So the question is, will you make or break? Now, both of those will be squaring Venus in Sagittarius. Anytime you have Pisces square Venus, regardless of what it is, it's saying that the issue here is Pisces' tendency towards melodrama. In this case, the message of this particular aspect is that if you're getting met with a test to see if you have moved beyond your bad habits, addictions, bad routines, whatever the case may be, and you're getting tested on them, it might pose problems to embracing your creativity or developing your romantic life. Also on the 11th, even though it is not early March, we have a Pisces stellium with the moon, Saturn retrograde, and Neptune retrograde. On one hand, this means your psychic skills will probably be sharper than normal. On another hand, it means you may be way too sensitive for emotions. If you're not an empath, you might be sensitive to emotions. If you are an empath, this could be overwhelming, so put a red flag on this day just to be safe. Now, also on the 11th, that moon conjunct Neptune retrograde in Pisces is sextiling Uranus retrograde in Taurus, telling us that you can find help breaking those bad habits, addictions, bad routines, whatever they may be, through the internet, or perhaps because you're focused on breaking them, the unexpected things that happen during the day actually come along to help you break them. And on the 11th, Venus moves into Capricorn. So Venus in Capricorn, overall, it's a good placement. Venus is the planet of love, creativity, the appreciation of those things, manifested goddess energy, and money. Capricorn is a sign that lacks money, has money, does well generally with money. So when Venus moves into Capricorn, it's all about the money. It's all about the Benjamins. It's all about the workplace. It's all about the career, the occupation, the overall direction in life. Romantically speaking, Venus in Capricorn is saying it's time for the relationship to mature to the next level. And really, a relationship can't mature to the next level until the people involved are on board with it maturing to the next level. There's a lot more I could say about this, but this is not the time nor the place to do it. On the 12th, we've got the moon conjunct the North Node retrograde in Aries, giving us for the day an Aries stellium. So you see how we go from a Pisces stellium to an Aries stellium. I point this out because, among other things, Pisces is the sign of endings. Aries is the sign of beginnings. So the 11th is the endings, the 12th is the beginnings. Specifically, new spiritual beginnings. New beginnings having to do with how you heal ego issues and how you rectify or proactively move forward with the next part of your spiritual journey. And all of that stellium is squaring Venus in Capricorn. So yes, move forward, exceed, succeed. But it may interfere with your work, especially money coming to you through the workplace. So don't blurt out those things you would normally blurt out in meetings on the 12th, because that might work against you in the short term. And all of that is trining Mars and Leo. We've talked about Mars and Leo already, but this trine tells us, look, this trine tells us The more you take the initiative today, the more optimism you're going to have at your side. You're going to have more energy than you expected to get things done. So just indulge. Strive evermore. Exceed, as the good book says. Okay. On the 13th, the moon is now conjunct Chiron retrograde in Aries, telling us that if you open mouth and insert foot, it's your subconscious talking to you. You didn't misspeak. Your subconscious said, hey, I need attention. We've got work to do. So in short, the message of the 13th is watch out for your emotions, because you might be approaching things from a space of ego wounds. The good news is both of those are sextiling Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, telling us that when these situations come up, the best way to handle them moving forward is by talking to people, seeking help, finding out what you did wrong. I almost never see anybody on social media say they were wrong. That's called humility. We also have that same moon in Aries on the 13th, squaring Pluto in Capricorn. So yes, moving forward on the 13th is going to cause some waves. It's going to cause some waves in the workplace. It's going to cause some waves in society. And so what? You can't control it. You can only control doing what's best and healthiest for you. Now, the sun in Scorpio is opposing Uranus retrograde in Taurus. This will be going on until the 23rd, so you get about 10 days of it. Yes, be focused. Yes, be driven. Yes, be ambition. But when the unexpected things come up during the day to address, don't let them disturb your apple cart. On the 14th, the moon in Taurus is trining Venus in Capricorn. It's a good day to eat. It's a good day to love. It's a good day to check out your finances, maybe do some responsible spending just for the sake of fun. Now, the moon in Taurus on that day is also squaring Mars in Leo. This cracks me up because everything I just said about enjoying things, well, this square is saying it's going to ruffle some feathers. Here again, let them be ruffled. Not your issue. But the big news on the 14th is Saturn begins stationing direct. When Saturn stations, it usually takes several days. For those of you that may not know, stationing means that it is moving retrograde to direct in Pisces. So, what this means is beginning the 14th for several days, it's going to be all about the weird, odd occurrences. You may feel like your life has been directed by David Lynch. Or maybe there's weird synchronicities, or just the odd things that happen from time to time. You can expect those. However, this stationing period is also saying, if you've been putting in the work, now you're going to get your comeuppance. So tread lightly, because Saturn is the planet of karma and lesson learning. But if you got nothing to worry about, don't worry about it. Just pay attention to your interaction with others, because maybe you're fine, but they're not. That moon in Taurus is also sextiling that stationing period, telling us that the more practically you handle your emotions during this time, the smoother the stationing period will be. On the 15th, we've got the moon conjunct Uranus retrograde in Taurus. If you've been watching these videos for any length of time, you know that whenever you get the moon conjunct Taurus or moon conjunct Uranus retrograde in Taurus, it means be careful what you eat. This could mean food poisoning. This also means be careful when you're interacting on the internet and social media, because you might be speaking emotionally when you shouldn't be, or maybe you're not being emotional enough when others need you to be. So it can be kind of tricky. And both of those are opposing the sun in Scorpio. Meaning, yes, be passionate and be consistent. Consistency is a trademark of both Scorpio and Taurus. But here again, to drive the point home from later in the month, don't let the unexpected that happens in your daily life detract you from what you're doing overall, especially if you are focusing on something right now. The moon conjunct Uranus retrograde in Taurus on the 15th is also trining Pluto in Capricorn, meaning now is a good day to use the internet to create social and institutional change. The sun in Scorpio is trining Neptune retrograde in Pisces. That's going to be in play until about the 24th or so. And what this tells us is now we get to come full circle in the middle of the month back to the point where it's time to visualize where you want to grow spiritually. It is a time to see, here is my vision, I'm going to bring it down into reality. Or to take a look at your spiritual beliefs and say, wow, I believe that. That doesn't make any sense. What the hell am I thinking? And throw the belief out. Spiritual beliefs are fluid if you're doing them right. Some things are immutable, but many of them can and should be changed often and frequently. The moon in Taurus is also sextiling the Mars Leo transit, telling us the more you're optimistic on the 15th, the more you are going to make good headway and good progress. And the 15th is the full moon. Sounds like it's going to be a pretty powerful full moon to me. How about you? And considering we had a powerful new moon to begin the month, and now we got a powerful full moon right smack dab in the middle of the month, I think that's pretty profound. It's the full moon in Scorpio, which means the moon is in Taurus, the sun is in Scorpio. And when you have a full moon, it's time to wrap things up. It's time for manifestation. It's time to get in there and say, hey, let's do this. It's a good time to change what you're doing if it needs to change. It is a good time to stay the course if that's what's necessary, even though you might be distracted by frivolous stuff on the side. And Mercury in Sagittarius on the 15th is trining Chiron retrograde in Aries. That's going to be in play until about the 20th. So the more that you are honest, the more that you speak about spiritual themes, the more it's going to help you heal any kind of internal ego wounds or toxic ego traits that you've got that you've been working on this whole time. The 16th brings the moon conjunct Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. This is a good day to engage in shallow conversations. This is a good day to spend with friends. This is a good day to make the elevator pitches and the relationship building in a very pedestrian way. Don't expect a lot of depth on the 16th. Because we've also got that moon in Gemini sextiling Mars and Leo, making the 16th a good day to achieve success with your creative projects. And the moon in Gemini on that day is also sextiling the north node of the moon retrograde in Aries, telling us that even though all of this may seem trivial and time-wasting and pedestrian, it's actually helping your spiritual growth and good. And this is something I like to remind people. Just because you are driven spiritually doesn't mean you have to be somber. Aleister Crowley wrote about this quite a bit. One of the problems with most religions is they don't give time for joy. So make sure on the 16th, you engage in joy as much as you possibly can, healthily. On the 17th, the moon is still conjunct Jupiter retrograde, and both of those are opposing Mercury in Sagittarius. So essentially what this is saying is all that talk I've been doing about being direct and compassionately honest while Mercury's moving through Sagittarius, this is the day to not do that. This is the break in the action. This is the day to blow off those direct conversations. Put them aside till a later time. Because today is all about shallowness and having fun. On the 18th, we've got the moon in Cancer opposing Venus in Capricorn. Work, professionalism. Work the job. That's the whole point of an opposition. It's a teeter-totter. You got to find the balance between the two. So expect home life issues if you're spending too much time at work. If you're spending too much time at home, expect professional issues. And the key way to work with all of this is balance. Now keep in mind that once you leave physical form, balance is an illusion, but since we're physically incarnated, it is all about balance. However, as many of you suspect, the way through this is through synthesis. Also on the 18th, the moon in Cancer is squaring the north node of the moon, retrograde in Aries. Yes, your intuition is going to be sharper than normal the 18th and the 19th, but now your intuition might work against you. And some might say, well, how is that possible? Oh, it's easy. Your intuition tells you what someone means when they say something, even though their words do not reflect that. And on the 18th, if you call them out, that might be the wrong move. It's better to jot it down in a journal or something that has a date attached so that when the person brings it up to you later, you can just reflect back and see that you were right. People will tell you things when they're ready to tell you things, essentially. And on that day, the moon is trining Saturn, now direct, in Pisces. Long story short, the 18th, I just talked about most of it, but the moon trine Saturn in Pisces is telling us that it's a good day to put into practice the spiritual changes that we've been talking about for most of this month so far. On the 19th, we've got the event. We've got the one that people have been misquoting for a long time, and we've got the biggest transit of some of our lives, but also of this month, because this is going to be in play for 20 years until 2044. Can you guess what that transit is? Can you guess what that ingress is? That's right, Pluto finally moves into Aquarius. About friggin' time. It's been there before, and then it went back to Capricorn, and then it went back, and then it went back, and it did this little burlesque dance so many times it has the people fooled into thinking that Pluto's in Aquarius this whole time, and it hasn't been. There's just been a small amount of time it's been in Aquarius, but now you get what is coming to you. Now you get what you want, because on the 19th, Pluto moves into Aquarius for the next 20 years. I don't know about you, but I'm ready. Pluto was in Capricorn 2008 till this year. Think of how many changes happened. Now magnify that, because that was only 16 years. We're talking about a 20-year transit here. Are you ready? I am. Bring it. So let's talk about this Pluto ingress Aquarius. Pluto, as I'm sure you can tell just from this video alone, is the planet of deep-seated transformation and change. It's all about getting down to the root of something and changing it from there. So not applying a band-aid, actually getting down to the cause and rooting it out like a teratoma. Aquarius. Oh, and Pluto also corresponds to violence and anger, rage, dark emotions, and the underworld, and treasure. Aquarius is the sign of humanitarian causes and efforts and endeavors. It is the sign of scientific method of thinking. It is a sign of intelligence, a sign of logic. It's a sign that corresponds to astrology, group consciousness, individuality, eccentricity, hard sciences, logical thinking rather than emotional thinking. So when you put the two together, first of all, it says if you've got strong Aquarius in your chart, it's going to be intense. I would have to look at your chart to see the specifics, but it's going to be an intense time for you. So when you put the two together, what it tells us is that for the next 20 years, there's going to be profound changes in society that have to do with science coming together. In other words, remembering that we are all one species on this rock floating through space together, and this tribalism crap has to go. So doing what's best for everyone, not just what's best for you and your retirement account or your Wall Street portfolio. Am I passionate about this? Yes. Because Pluto in Aquarius is all about necessary changes. It's logical changes. It's doing what's right, not what makes the most number of people feel good. And with that is going to come a host of problems. But the potential for change outweighs the challenges, because we're going to be better off for it. And this is happening anyway, so we can either go along with it or dig in our heels. So for the next 20 years, the emphasis is going to be on oneness. It's going to be on helping others who can't help themselves. It's going to be on equality, which we still don't have, as I'm sure any woman will tell you. And they're right. So that's what you can expect for the next 20 years. More of an emphasis on the hard sciences, more of an emphasis on helping everyone, less emphasis on toxic ego traits like narcissism. They'll still be there, but now the majority will be against that. I could rant about this topic. I may do a video separately on it later, but I'm sure you get the picture for now, and that's the 19th. And I point out that that's the 19th because the 20th has the moon conjunct Mars in Leo. So both of those will be opposing Pluto in Aquarius. So that transit happens the 19th. On the 20th, you immediately see an idea of what it's going to be like for the next 20 years. And the picture is going to be clear, even though you might not like it. And I say that because on the 21st, the sun moves into Sagittarius. So basically, from about the 18th to the 22nd, it's going to be a rocky road. In the long run, it's going to be fine. But the main themes that are challenges, the 18th through the 22nd, are all about doing what's best for the individual versus the collective. And there is no for sure answer there. It's going to depend on a bajillion factors I'm not going to get into here. Now, on the 21st, we also have the moon in Leo, trining Chiron retrograde in Aries. So the more you focus on optimism and creative problem solving, the more you are healing your internal wounds. Pluto in Aquarius is sextiling the north node of the moon, retrograde in Aries. That's going to be going on for several days. So the more you embrace Pluto in Aquarius, the more you're making spiritual growth. So the 21st has a fixed sign T-square between Pluto, Mars, and the north node of the moon. Fixed sign T-squares are challenging pressurizing aspect patterns, so there just might be a tense vibe in the air, and that vibe is going to have to do with finding the harmony between doing what's best for everyone versus yourself, and how all of that comes together to accrue spiritual growth and professional development. The 22nd sees the Sun in Sagittarius sextiling Pluto in Aquarius, telling us now it's time to look at integrating your spirituality with the upcoming changes from Pluto in Aquarius. We also have a grand fire trine on the 22nd, so expect more energy than normal at your disposal. The moon in Leo on the 22nd is squaring Uranus retrograde in Taurus, telling us the more you are focused on you during the day, the more problems might come up. So tread lightly. The 23rd brings the moon in Virgo, squaring the sun in Sagittarius. So in your pursuit of critical thinking and compartmentalizing your emotions, it might not be the healthiest thing you need to do for you, for your spiritual growth. Now that same moon in Virgo is opposing Saturn in Pisces. Not a good day to do anything spiritual, really, on the 23rd. And that moon in Virgo is trining Venus in Capricorn. So, right there, you can tell, instead of focusing on the spiritual things on the 23rd, focus on work. Cleaning up work, money through work, all of that good stuff. That moon in Virgo is also squaring Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, giving us a mutable T-square. So the fixed sign T-square from the 21st now changes to mutable, so there still might be tension in the air, but it will not be as intense as it was earlier. And this also means on the 23rd, we have an Earth grand trine, which is great for manifestation. So put the 23rd on your calendar as a day to get physical things done, whether it's cleaning or work projects that need wrapped up, whatever the case may be. On the 24th, that same moon in Virgo is squaring Mercury in Sagittarius, so communication might be an issue then, particularly in the workplace. And that same moon is also opposing Neptune retrograde in Pisces, so the mutable T-square continues. It's just different planets involved. And because that's not enough for the 24th, Mercury stations retrograde, the final Mercury retrograde of the year. Mercury retrogrades in Sagittarius. It's going to be a rocky one, especially if you're a mutable sign. Mutable signs being Virgo, Gemini, Pisces, and Sagittarius. If you're a fire sign, probably not going to be that challenging, but it's still going to be something. On the 25th, the moon in Libra is sextiling the sun in Sagittarius. It's a good day to play nice with others. It's a good day for diplomacy. It's a good day to focus on your personal relationships. And that same moon in Libra is trining Pluto in Aquarius. So you can make some moves now with making the right connections that can put you in a position to build from for the next 20 years. And that moon in Libra is opposing the North Node retrograde in Aries, telling us that if you're indecisive about some things in your life, it's going to work against you, spiritually speaking. And that moon in Libra, because that's not enough, is sextiling Mars in Leo. So go out and have fun. The 26th brings the moon in Libra squaring Venus in Capricorn. So indecision cost you in the workplace. Focusing on getting along with others might work against you there too. And that moon in Libra is opposing Chiron retrograde in Aries, giving us a cardinal T-square. So still more challenges, but now the emphasis is on how you integrate your spirituality. The 27th brings the moon in Libra sextiling Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. It's a good time to wrap up conversations and interactions with others. The 28th brings us Mercury and Scorpio squaring Pluto in Aquarius, and Mars in Leo, giving us a fixed T-square again. So we've just got T-squares pretty much the last week of the month, so expect challenges during Mercury retrograde. And that moon is trining Saturn in Pisces, telling us it's a good time to get back to your spirituality. The moon in Scorpio brings a sextile to Venus in Capricorn on the 29th. It also forms a trine to Neptune retrograde in Pisces and opposes Uranus retrograde in Taurus, telling us keep the business mindset, put aside the spiritual and the creative. And finally, on the 30th, we have a new moon. So the first we had a new moon, the 30th we have a new moon. This one's in Sagittarius with a Sagittarius stellium, a grand trine in fire, so extra energy and a stronger connection to divinity will be present. Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is opposing Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, so watch conversations among friends. And Venus in Capricorn is trining Uranus retrograde in Taurus until the 5th of December, which is not that much earlier than when Mercury retrograde ends. Intense month. Lots going on. Stay sharp. Thank you, Adam Knox and the Cult of You, for this platform. Thank all of you for checking this out. And until we chat again, may we all receive blessings of good health and prosperity as we move forward in this next interesting month of our lives.